Welcome back to Hot Flashes and Cold Topics, everybody. We are thrilled today to have Carolyn Ray on. And Carolyn Ray heads up Journeywoman. And you guys really need to know about Journeywoman, especially for our demographic. They have all kinds of things to do with travel, especially for women our age that either want to travel solo or maybe they want to travel with their couples or with couples and they really aren't looking for the kid friendly spots anymore. So there is very extensive research done on Journeywoman. So thank you for coming, Carolyn Ray.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, so first of all, could you just share a little bit about what Journeywoman is and what it does?
Sure. I'd love to. So Journeywoman was established in 1994. So we're actually celebrating our 30th anniversary next year as the world's first resource for women who want to travel solo. And it was started by a woman here in Toronto named Evelyn Hannon. And she had just gone through a divorce and wanted to travel and couldn't find any resources at all that were geared towards women or women traveling on their own. So she went off and she, in her own words, she was lonely and she cried and she went to Europe and then she came back from that and she thought she'd start writing about it. So here we are, 30 years later. We went online in 1997. And so it was pretty much the first, one of the first travel websites in the world, and for sure the first one for women, for solo women. And Evelyn sadly passed away about 4 years ago. She and her family asked me to take over Journeywoman and keep it going, which was an honor and a privilege. And so I took over just before the pandemic.
Oh
And here we
my.
are.
Yes. Oh my.
So a statistic that I saw that I was pretty surprised about was that 70% of women over 50 don't feel seen or heard by the travel industry. I shouldn't be surprised by those stats anymore because we consistently hear from our demographic saying, I feel invisible. Why do you think the
Mhm.
travel industry has not caught up with this incredible opportunity that women in our demographic want to travel but need resources?
Yeah, well, that's a study that we did last fall called the affluence and influence of women over 50 in travel. And I wanted to do that study to put some data behind what I saw was happening in travel. And I'm pretty new to travel. I mean, I've only been doing this for 4 years, really. Prior to that, I was in a completely different life and a different job, and I came into this because I love travel and I'm passionate about travel. I'm turning 55 in a few weeks, and
Happy birthday.
and I
Join the
thank
club.
you.
We're 55. Yes.
Yes.
And I just saw when I got to know the women, and I'll call them a community because it's both. I mean, we're a publication, but it's also a community. When I got to know them, I was just so amazed by their wisdom and their energy and their knowledge and their generosity and um and so this survey evolved out of discussions with them where they felt there's so much attention being paid to, and it's not to say it's wrong or right or judge it, but to younger people. And it's just this feeling of, feeling invisible, as you said, and which is something that we all feel as we get older. And I think in travel, there is, what we found in that study is if you, one of the ways that was most obvious to me is if I'm searching for photography of older women on their own traveling, it's incredibly difficult to find. So it's a woman, an active, adventurous woman, I should say, right? Which is what I believe most of these women are. It's a woman sitting on a beach or looking sad or like has always with a man, or like there's all this, not diverse, not showing women with mobility issues or in wheelchairs, like that whole thing just isn't happening. And so we wanted to use this data to kind of quantify that a little bit and get the travel industry to pay attention to it. And I think they are. I think we're seeing a lot of changes. We work with hundreds of companies in our women's travel directory, which is another part of Journey Woman, to help women find safe tours. And I think they're really paying attention to it. And you know, last year they told us that almost 80% of the women going on group tours were over 50. So it is an enormous market. It's an affluent market. You know, you all probably have friends who are you know, retiring or widowed or inheriting money, or just choosing to live differently and not spend all their money on, you know, houses and things, and instead redirect that money to travel. So there's a lot of interesting shifts that are happening right now in the world.
I really, am impressed with the study and how deep the study went in reading your statistics. And one of them, and I think should really resonate with people and getting the word out, is the amount of money women are willing to spend. It was $3,000 to $5,000 per week, and they travel several, like more than once a year. This isn't even just once a year.
Right.
Have you seen any results from your study?
Yeah. Well, we actually just did a second one looking more at that. And I think I have the numbers right here. Just a second.
Oh, great.
Cool.
But the study that we just did a few weeks ago said that 73% of women over 50 are going to travel internationally in 2023. And the real trend that we're seeing among older women is to travel in the off season. And I think older women are leading this trend as well. It's certainly the way I travel. So I always think about, okay, where is the place that I'm going? Is it high season? You know, do I want to add to the burden that these cities and communities feel by going now? Or can I go at another time of the year when it's almost a more authentic experience anyways to travel, kind of in the lower seasons when the whole world, like right now in Europe, for example, I think Europe is going bonkers because they've never seen tourism this summer like they're seeing right now. And so that's not a place that I would go right now, because I'd rather go when I can actually walk the streets and, you know, sit at a restaurant and not have to get reservations and just live on, you know, a regular life. So what we see is that women over 50 are thinking about longer stays. So staying in a place for a longer period of time, could be 2 to 3 to 4 weeks or more, and spending more money in those places. So as you said, somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a week. Now that depends a little bit whether you're going on a group tour or, you know, airfare or accommodations and that kind of thing. But that's a substantial amount of money, and that's more than a Gen Y, for example, a younger person might spend. And also, as older women, if you are going on a group tour or you're going on a river cruise or something like that, there's this crazy thing called the single supplement, which is a supplemental fee that you pay to have a room to yourself, which is another reason that solo travelers pay more to travel on their own.
You know, in looking at your website, it is so comprehensive. And so many of the questions I would ask if I were a single woman traveling are answered in your blogs, in articles, and things like cybersecurity travel tips for women. What are some of the top concerns women have for traveling when they're traveling alone?
So we've been talking about women's safety for 30 years. Obviously, physical safety is a real consideration. Recently, when I was living in Spain last year, I had the experience of getting my email hacked. And so fortunately, I was able to take steps to protect things, but it made me realize how vulnerable we are when we travel. So we just did 2 webinars on cybersecurity and the planning that you need to do before you travel to make sure that your data and your information is protected. And there's everything from having proper passwords. I mean, I forget the number, but I saw a study that said something like, I'll make up the number, it's not right, but like 60% of people use their children's names or their birthdays or something as their passwords, right? That makes it really easy for people to get into your email. And once they're into your email, they're into your could be into all kinds. In my case, I had a bank statement in my email, so they were able to contacted my bank, asked for a wire transfer, like the
Oh
whole
my
thing,
gosh.
right? So even called to say it was me.
Yeah.
So so the hackers are getting pretty aggressive, and it's important that we have to think about our online safety. Even something like we recommended on that webinar, don't post on social media when you're traveling, wait until you get home. It's always we want to tell people where we are in the moment, but it's actually not great for safety. And also photographs can be geotagged, so people can see exactly where you are, which could, contribute to your immediate safety as well. So safety is a really big issue, and we're going to keep talking about it in all kinds of different ways, not just physical safety, but also things like human trafficking, which I think women need to be aware of when they're traveling, not necessarily, stopping it, but certainly knowing the signs of it as people who travel a lot. What are the signs that somebody might be trafficked, and what can we do to help that person?
Yeah, and just general things, I've traveled, Colleen travels to Europe, and you always hear about just things like pickpockets and how to safely, take your money with you. And I know people that have been pickpocketed, passport stolen, had to go to
Yeah,
the consulate. So what are, I'm sure you cover measures like that as well.
we do, and there are really nice body. I usually wear a body bag across, and I keep my passport and my wallet and everything right in there. I never actually take it off except when I'm sleeping, because it's become a habit now. I don't sit down at a restaurant and put my bag on the chair. I don't do that anymore. Um, I think you've got to keep your things close to you. But I think the number one thing we tell women when they're traveling is just trust your intuition. If you start to feel those little hairs on the back of your neck start to, um, so, you're walking in an area that makes you feel uncomfortable, or you think someone's potentially following you, or you're on a dark street. Like, there are all kinds of things you can do to just think ahead and prevent that from happening. And we also did self-defense training last year, teaching women how to scream. Like, when's the last time you screamed your head off? I mean, that's important for women to know that their voice can help save their lives.
Mm. Driving, that's the last time I screamed. No,
Yeah.
oh goodness.
You also have a
Mm.
comprehensive travel directory and you've featured destinations. Are there certain locations that would be featured for 2023 that our single travelers or perhaps couple travelers might want to look into?
Yeah, so we have guides to different countries, which, to be honest, we're updating all of them. A lot of the content we had before the pandemic is outdated, so we've got to get out there and and I have writers in various countries around the world that are helping us do that. And of course, the Journey Woman readers help too, because when they travel, they send in their tips and they let us know what's open, what's not, what they're doing, that kind of thing. In terms of destinations, the survey that we just did, we asked women where they were traveling this year. And I think there's an awful lot of travel happening in Europe, as I mentioned earlier, and the UK and Ireland. We're also seeing Australia come up as one of the places women are looking at. Mexico, which I've spent quite a bit of time in myself and absolutely love and find it safe. There's a lot of places that have a reputation, and I think it all depends where you go and when you go. And then the other country that's come up is Japan. So, which is great, because we're starting to see a lot of interest again in Asia, which I think is wonderful. I'm hoping to get over to Japan myself at some point in the next few months.
Another thing I notice is that you seek out women-owned businesses. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So about a year and a half ago, I had a woman approach me from New Zealand who had started a website that had tours on it for women. And we know that, even though Journey Woman is really a solo travel website at its core, solo travel isn't just about traveling on your own all the time. It can be a mindset. You're still planning you're planning your travel, you're researching it, you're thinking about where you're going. And so this woman, Rosemary Neve, asked me if I would be interested in her website, which she had created with all these women friendly tours on it, into Journey Woman. And I took a look at it and just thought it was amazing to have right now hundreds of tours actually for women that we have reviewed. And some are verified. Verified is a slightly higher status, but these are all small businesses operated by women, targeting women as clients who understand women's needs and interests. And they do tours all over the world. So this is a way for us to help small businesses recover and also connect them with our audience of women travelers who are looking for places to go. And I hope, women supporting women is important to me. And so I'm trying to encourage women when they spend their money on travel, that they think about supporting a women-owned business, whether it's a tour company, a hotel, a guide, a restaurant. Just find out, am I helping a woman in this community? And because we all know that women, raise others up with them, and that in many places around the world, the woman is the breadwinner and she is the one who is bringing in the money for her family. So that's what we're trying to do with our Women's Travel Directory is really support these amazing small businesses.
Well, I was surprised because I didn't know that there's a Women's Travel Fest event. Like, I saw that there's a Women's Travel Event 2023 where they debuted solo women over 50 travel. And I'm probably going to butcher the name, but Trafalgar, is that the way you say it?
Trafalgar, yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Trafalgar Tour sponsored it, which, I remember the books that when I would go somewhere, I would get the Trafalgar books, but which, it probably dates me even older. But so now we're having like solo women over 50 travel kind of groups in conferences. How did that go? And what kind of response was there?
Well, so Women's Travel Fest just had its 10th year this year, and the founder, Kelly Lewis, and I met a few years ago. I was actually on a panel. She invited me to be on a panel last year. And it was a panel called Travel at Any Age. And so there were 3 of us over the age of 50 talking about what it was like to travel as older women. And we were literally the oldest women at the whole conference. And so after that, I said, Kelly, women over 50 is a really important audience. And Women's Travel Fest is the largest solo travel event in the world for women. And so after we did the study, I spoke to her and proposed that we do this panel. So we had on it one of my writers, Diana, who's 82, was on the panel. And I was just telling this story to someone else a few minutes ago. But so there was Diana and Dawn, who is also one of my writers, and then Melissa De Silva, who's the president of Trafalgar Tours. And so we're talking about how's travel changed from when we were younger. And so Diana, at age 82, I hope it's okay to say it.
Oh, it's
the first thing she said.
Oh, yeah.
The first thing she said is, "Well, I don't have as many orgasms as I used to." And I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be quite the panel. So yeah, we try to talk about everything. And so yeah, we're just talking about the wisdom of women. And I find women, older women, listen, the women in their 80s are just so kick-ass. And we have so much to learn from each other. So I love any opportunity to highlight them and bring them forward and share their wisdom. And we're actually going to be doing a book next year on older women and looking at their perspective on life and travel. So
You'll have to
I think
come
they
back.
deserve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I'd love to.
You know, that reminds me, my mother-in-law, she's haha, I'm gonna tell your age.
I was
She's
gonna say, Bridget,
78.
be careful.
She's 78. And that was her big thing. I know that when the lockdown, all that hit, and she had planned a trip to Ireland with her
Hmm.
sister, and that was pushed back. And one of her concerns when she would talk to us, she said, I don't know how many years I have left to do these things that
Yes.
I want to do. And she's fully capable. I did a trip with her to Provence. Gosh, I don't know how long. It's 2017, I think. We did like a walk. She wanted to walk. Like she didn't walk fast, but she did walk,
Hmm.
5 to 6 miles a day, all kinds of travel. And she is getting ready to do, I guess what you'd call solo, even though she's with a group, but
Hmm.
she doesn't really know anybody that she's
Yeah, that's
going
right.
with, but she's doing it. And I think, like you said earlier, she, rather than possessions, she would like to see more of the world. So it is really amazing what you can learn and what you can do. And if you keep moving, you know, how long you can live and enjoy these things. So I think that's,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, part of my transition from the corporate kind of, I'll say consumer driven world. I mean, I had the 3 bedroom house, I had the big corporate job, and I had a transformative trip to Kenya with my daughter, and I came back from that, and I just thought, I just do not need all this. I cannot live this way. So I sold my house, I auctioned off everything in it. And when you have that that feeling of freedom, when you everything you own is basically in a couple boxes in a backpack, it's a completely different way to live your life. And I think there's two things to think about with travel. Is yes, you want to fulfill your dreams and your bucket list, and travel should be about self-discovery and courage and independence and all of those things. But I also think as women, we also have to think about our impact on the world, and what we can do as women to make really good decisions when we decide to travel, and decide how we travel. Planes versus trains is a perfect example of, that the 4 months I was in Europe, I only took one flight, and I took the train everywhere. It's a better way to travel. It's, I think, a less stressful way to travel. You don't have to worry about security and checking bags and fluids and all this other ridiculous, bag charges. And
Delays.
Mhm.
yeah, and it's very pleasant to travel by train. So even in the US and Canada, I'm trying to travel by train and use public transit, and think about, how to just simplify that, right? And take stress off ourselves, because the stress of going to an airport now, I mean, it's just so much more complicated than before, right? I used to just go to the airport and basically walk onto the plane. And now I just, you've got to get there so much earlier. You never, like, it's just the whole scenario has changed, and never mind the cost.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So
Especially this
I
summer.
think
We've
looking
heard that
for,
costs are astronomical to travel this
it
summer.
is, it is. Yeah, it is. It's almost offensive, frankly.
yeah.
But it does remind us that it is a privilege to travel, and so we are lucky to be able to travel at all. But I think with that comes a responsibility to think about how we travel, and what we do, and everything from wildlife to as I said earlier, supporting small businesses, and thinking about how we can do that when we're on the ground somewhere.
Right. And that's another thing I like about Journey Woman's, the blogs and the writings are all the travel tips that are included on there. And, when you go to a different country, they have different ways of doing things, and to be
Hmm.
respectful for the way that
Hmm.
they do things. So I certainly, I don't mean to bash our country, but I totally get it when you hear people say ugly American, some of the behavior that I've seen when I travel, it's like sometimes I'm so embarrassed. Like I want to pretend that I can speak another language so they don't think that
So you're not American?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, oh no, so that's something else I appreciate about the
Yeah.
tips that are on the blog as well.
You
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those come from women who are, I don't know, this is what I think makes a journey woman. The women who subscribe to her newsletters and whatnot, they call themselves journey women because it is a mindset of um it is I think about it as kind of you seek, you learn, you teach. And so not only are you going out into the world and following your curiosity, you're learning, but then you're teaching. And that's what the tips are about. The tips are about teaching a different way of thinking about travel.
If you had to suggest a couple of travel agencies that really speak to women, single women 50 plus that are traveling, could you give us the names of maybe one or two that you would recommend women look into?
I'd be happy to. Just we have about 100 in our directory, so
I know.
Yeah.
you're gonna force me to
Just give not necessarily the
In
top,
any
but
particular order, in no
exactly, just
particular
2 or
order.
3
Yes.
that you
Yeah.
feel are great for women to start, if they don't know where to start.
Yeah, I think for if you are a woman and you have never traveled solo before, I think Trafalgar Tours is a great place to start because the pricing is really low. I mean, you can go to Europe or wherever for under $2,000 a month in many of these, with many of their tours. Intrepid is another one. Intrepid has women's expeditions that are adventurous, that go to places like Jordan and Iran, and they just opened a new one for Pakistan, Morocco. Like, go if that's more you want to go somewhere where you're working, you're going to meet women, you're going to meet women-owned businesses. That's part of their philosophy is places where there isn't gender equality so that we can learn about that. Another one is Wild Women Expeditions, which is based in Canada, which is the world's largest women's adventure company. And I actually did the Camino walk with them. I also did backcountry horseback riding with them in Banff, Alberta, which was my first time on a horse, and loved it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there's other things too, just to think about is we have a lot of kind of wellness retreats. So I just did one in Quebec City a few weeks ago, and these are like transformational experiences that women can go on. And in my case, I think, we're still coming out of this global pandemic there's a lot of emotion to deal with. And I lost both my parents during the pandemic, and I hadn't really resolved it. And so I went with a company called Advivim Journeys and did a kind of a weekend retreat. And we talked about grief and anger and how we process that. And I think that's also important to consider is not just going and doing a yoga spa retreat, but also like, how do we heal ourselves, and how do we prepare ourselves for the future and kind of shed the past and process this. So I think, that may not be a travel retreat per se, but it is, these kinds of things are being held all over the world in really beautiful places that facilitate that kind of dialogue. And so I encourage women to think about that too, because I know so many women have gone through tremendous change, or have been caregivers, or whatever the situation might be. And I think we have to give ourselves a little self-care too, when we think about travel.
Wow, that's amazing. Just the mental health aspect that can come along with that. That's
And it's a great
really
option
great.
because some women really do need to process, whether it be a death or divorce or whatever's coming there with children leaving the nest, that internal work needs to be done. So that's a great option. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Um,
my pleasure.
thank you for coming on. We're going to make sure to have all of the links to Journey Women on our show notes. So women can just go over to hotflashescooltopics.com and they will find the show notes and your links. And thank you for doing this, because I'm so glad we discovered it. It's so informative.
Oh,
And
thank you.
we are happy to share it. Just give me 1 second and stay on after we stop. But we just want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you both for having me. And yeah, if I hope that your listeners will sign up for our newsletters and join a book club or a community call or a
That's
Facebook
right. We
group
didn't
and
even
just
get into the
inspired,
book.
We didn't
right?
get into that.
We
I'm
didn't
glad
even
you
get
brought those
into
up.
the book
We were
club. I forgot
we were
about
so
that.
fascinated with everything else that we forgot about all those cool things too.
So guys, check that out.
I can
as
come back
well.
and talk about that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes.